Have you ever wondered if the person you love loves you for who you really are or just what you possess? Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on insightful stories like this. Why on earth are you still doing this? Alex, don't you ever get tired of playing with people? Chloe demanded, watching her brother adjust his tie in the mirror. I'm not playing, it's a social experiment, Alex replied, adjusting his collar. I need to know who genuinely cares for me, not just for my money or status. And faking a disability is how you plan to figure that out? That's just sick, Chloe retorted, disgusted. Alex ignored her, finishing his preparations. His sleek navy suit stood in sharp contrast to the polished black wheelchair waiting by the door. This was his fifth experiment, as he called it. The previous four had only confirmed his deepest suspicions. The moment women discovered he was in a wheelchair, their initial interest dissolved into pity or awkwardness. This is the last time, I promise? Alex lied, expertly maneuvering himself into the chair, a movement he'd practiced countless times. The restaurant, the Gilded Spoon, was elegant but not ostentatious. Alex arrived 15 minutes early, as was his custom. The maitre d' led him to his reserved table with a practiced professionalism, yet Alex caught that familiar glint of pity in his eyes, a look he utterly despised. May I assist you with your chair, sir? The maitre d' asked. I've got it, thank you, Alex replied curtly. Despite the warm ambience, everything felt cold to him. The smiling couples at other tables, the soft jazz music, nothing resonated. He checked his watch. 5 minutes late. Maybe she won't come, he thought with a bitter satisfaction. But then she walked in. Eleanor Vance wasn't what he expected. She wore a simple olive green dress, no flashy jewelry. Her dark hair was tied back practically, not elaborately. And when she smiled at the maitre d', asking about her reservation, Alex noticed something different. A genuine, unpracticed smile. Alex Thorne? She asked, approaching his table. I'm Eleanor. So sorry I'm late. Traffic was a nightmare. No worries, I just got here myself, he lied, extending his hand. Eleanor settled into the seat opposite him with a natural grace. There was no awkward pause, no furtive glance at the wheelchair that Alex had become so adept at detecting in others. What do you recommend? She asked, perusing the menu. It's my first time here. The salmon is excellent, though personally, I prefer the steak with mushrooms. The conversation flowed with surprising ease. Eleanor talked about literature, her students at the local public school, a film she'd seen last week. She didn't ask about the wheelchair, nor did she look at him with pity. What about your family? Eleanor asked, sampling her dessert. I have a sister, Chloe. My parents passed away years ago, Alex responded, measuring each word carefully, unwilling to reveal too much about his financial standing. I'm so sorry. I only have my mother. She lives with me since my father passed. She has arthritis, so I care for her as best I can. There was a simplicity about Eleanor that disarmed Alex. She wasn't trying to impress him, nor was she uncomfortable with his supposed condition. She was simply there, present, sharing dinner as if they'd known each other for years. You know, Alex commented, I like the way you talk about your students. It's clear you love your job. It's tough sometimes, with our limited resources. But when a child learns something new and you see that sparkle in their eyes, it's worth every moment. As the evening wore on, Alex found himself forgetting his original plan. For the first time, he wasn't scrutinizing his companion's reactions to his fake disability. He was simply enjoying the conversation. When the bill came, Eleanor insisted on splitting it. That's not necessary, Alex said. I invited you. I prefer it this way, she replied with gentle firmness. Next time you can invite me, if you want there to be a next time. Alex stared at her, surprised. In his previous experiments, he'd always been in control. He decided if there would be a second meeting, always with the intention of revealing his deception and confirming his theories about people's superficiality. But this time, for the very first time, he genuinely wanted to see her again. As they left the restaurant, Eleanor bid him farewell with a kiss on the cheek. She didn't offer help with the wheelchair. She showed no discomfort. I had a wonderful time, Alex. I hope you'll call. Watching her walk away, Alex felt something unfamiliar. Guilt. The meticulously laid plan suddenly felt insufficient. For the first time, the lie weighed more heavily than the satisfaction of proving himself right.
Dấu chấm hỏi đen trang trí nếu bạn là Alex, bạn có dám nói ra sự thật lúc này không? Hãy bình luận suy nghĩ của bạn bên dưới. Khi sự thật bắt đầu nặng trĩu hơn bí mật.
Did you invite her again? Chloe dropped her coffee cup onto the table with more force than necessary. Wasn't this supposed to be a one-night experiment? Alex shrugged, checking his phone. Eleanor's message, confirming she'd meet him at the cafe, had put him in a good mood. It's different this time. Different how? Chloe demanded. Did you tell her the truth? Alex's silence was answer enough. Chloe ran her hands through her hair, exasperated. Oh, for God's sake, Alex, are you going to keep pretending you need that chair? What happens when she finds out who you really are? Not just that you can walk, but that you own half the city. I just want to get to know her better, Alex mumbled. If I tell her the truth now, everything will change. Of course it will change, because you're lying to her, you idiot. The Cozy Corner Cafe was far less elegant than the restaurant from their first date. Alex had chosen it precisely for that reason. A discreet spot where no one would recognize him. While he waited, he mentally reviewed the stories he'd fabricated about his life. He worked in administration for a mid-sized company, lived in a modest apartment, and had been in a car accident 3 years ago. Eleanor arrived promptly, her hair down this time, and wearing a blue sweater that highlighted the color of her eyes. She carried a book under her arm. I brought you this, she said, handing him a worn copy of Chronicle of a Death Foretold. You mentioned you liked Gabriel Garcia Marquez but hadn't read this one. Alex took the book, genuinely surprised. No one had ever given him a used book before. His gifts were usually expensive items, given more out of obligation than connection. Thank you. I'll take good care of it. It's for reading, not for safekeeping, she laughed. Books are meant to be enjoyed, not to gather dust. The conversation deepened over cups of coffee. Eleanor spoke of her passion for teaching literature at a public school in the south of the city, of her students from working-class families, and how she tried to inspire them despite limited resources. Sometimes I bring my own books for them to read, she explained. The school library is a disaster. And your boss doesn't mind? Alex asked, thinking about how much money he could anonymously donate to that school. The principal. She does what she can with what she has. We're all in the same boat. Eleanor also talked about her mother, a 70-year-old woman with arthritis who had been a teacher before retiring. They lived together in a small apartment near the school. She inspired me to be a teacher, she said proudly. Even though I could have earned more in the private sector. Alex avoided talking about his own wealthy family or the construction company he ran. Each lie weighed more heavily than the last, especially when Eleanor shared her life with such transparency. What about you? She observed. You barely talk about your work. Not much to tell. Paperwork, meetings, the usual. After the cafe, Eleanor suggested walking through the nearby park. Alex felt a momentary panic but agreed. As they strolled the paths, she pushing his chair, Alex realized that Eleanor attracted glances. Not for her conventional beauty, but for her utterly authentic way of moving and speaking. I like being with you, Alex said without thinking. You're different? She asked, stopping. Real. No masks. Eleanor smiled, unaware of the irony of his words. That night, Chloe waited for Alex in his penthouse. She watched him enter, still in the wheelchair, and shook her head when he finally stood to pour himself a whiskey. How long are you going to keep up this charade? I don't know, Alex admitted. You like her, don't you? Chloe pressed. And not like your other experiments. Alex looked out the window at the illuminated city. For years, he had built buildings, accumulated wealth, and played these social experiments to protect himself from self-serving relationships. But now the game had turned on him. That woman doesn't deserve your lies, Chloe continued. If you're genuinely interested in her, tell her the truth before it's too late. What if she rejects me? The vulnerability in his voice surprised them both. At least it will be honest, unlike what you're doing now. This has no future, Alex. He knew his sister was right, but every time he imagined the disappointment in Eleanor's eyes, fear paralyzed him. For the first time in his life, Alex didn't want to lose something he was just beginning to have. Someone who seemed to appreciate him for who he was, not for what he had. What he didn't know was how long he could maintain the lie before everything came crashing down.
Sự thật phơi bày, cú sốc và nỗi đau của sự phản bội.
Alex, will you come with me? Eleanor's voice sounded hopeful over the phone. The kids have worked so hard on this literary event. I know it's a humble school, but I'd love to go, Alex replied without a second thought. The silence on the other end of the line made him realize she hadn't expected such an immediate answer. 3 weeks had passed since their first meeting, and with each passing day, the lie weighed more heavily on his shoulders. Really? I thought you'd have to check your schedule or something. I always have time for you, he said, and he meant it. The school where Eleanor worked was in a neighborhood Alex would normally only see from the tinted window of his car. The building desperately needed a new coat of paint, and the courtyard where they'd set up the makeshift stage was surrounded by mismatched folding chairs. Despite everything, there was something vibrant about the atmosphere. Parents, teachers, and students moved with enthusiasm, arranging last-minute details. Eleanor greeted him with a kiss on the cheek and introduced him to some colleagues without mentioning the wheelchair, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I'm nervous, she confessed. It's the first time we've organized something like this. You'll be incredible, Alex assured her. The event began with a 12-year-old girl reciting a poem by Octavio Paz. Alex watched Eleanor more than the students. The way her eyes sparkled with maternal pride whenever one of her students took the stage deeply moved him. During a performance by a group dramatizing a passage from Pedro Páramo, Eleanor leaned towards him and whispered, "See that boy? The one in the blue shirt? 6 months ago, he wouldn't even speak in class. Now look at him." The passion with which Eleanor spoke of her students, the way she celebrated every small achievement as if it were her own, made Alex wonder when he himself had last been so excited about something that wasn't a multi-million-dollar contract or a new real estate project. After the presentations, while they were having coffee in plastic cups, one of Eleanor's colleagues came over to chat. They talked about a bullying incident at the school. "What hurts me the most," Eleanor said, "is that the child didn't tell us anything because he thought we wouldn't believe him. That's what happens when you break trust. It's almost impossible to get it back." Her gaze became serious as she added. Alex almost choked on his coffee. Eleanor had said the phrase in Portuguese, explaining later that her grandmother was Brazilian and had taught her some expressions. "What does that mean?" Alex asked, even though he'd understood it perfectly. "I think what hurts me most in life is when someone you trust lies to you," she translated. "Sounds nicer in Portuguese, don't you think?" The words hit Alex like a punch to the gut. He tried to respond, but his throat closed up. For an instant, he almost confessed everything right there, surrounded by students and parents. "Are you okay?" Eleanor asked, noticing his change of expression. "Yes, it made me think." That night, after he dropped her off at her place, or rather, a block from her building, so her mother wouldn't ask questions about the wheelchair, Alex returned to his penthouse. Chloe was waiting with coffee. "I can tell by your face you haven't told her," she commented as Alex got out of the chair and sank onto the sofa. "What's your plan? Keep pretending for months? Years?" "I want to tell her," Alex murmured. "I almost did today. But I'm scared, okay?" The frustration in his voice surprised them both. "I've never met anyone like her. She's authentic. She doesn't fake to impress anyone. Unlike you," Chloe pointed out mercilessly. "Unlike me," he admitted. "Alex?" Chloe sat next to him. "Every day that passes, the lie gets bigger. If she really matters to you, you have to tell her the truth now. What if she hates me? Today she said that what hurts her most is when someone she trusts lies to her. And you think she'll hate you less if she discovers the truth by accident? If she sees you walking on the street? If someone mentions who you really are? Alex ran his hands over his face. His sister was right, as always. The lie was no longer sustainable, not just because he might be discovered, but because every day he spent with Eleanor, every honest conversation they had, made his dishonesty weigh more heavily. I'll do it, he finally decided. I'll tell her in person. She deserves that much, at least. When? Tomorrow, after her classes. Chloe nodded, squeezing his shoulder in support. It's the right thing to do, Alex. Whatever the outcome, at least you'll be able to look at yourself in the mirror without feeling ashamed. That night, Alex could barely sleep. He rehearsed 1,000 ways to confess the truth. He imagined all of Eleanor's possible reactions. In the best-case scenario, she would eventually forgive him. In the worst, he would lose her forever. For the first time in a long time, Alex Thorne, the ruthless businessman who never hesitated in his business decisions, was afraid. Not of losing money or status, but of losing the opportunity for something real, something he didn't even know he was looking for until he found her. The morning arrived with a painful clarity. Alex woke up after barely 2 hours of restless sleep. For the first time in years, he didn't check his emails or financial news. He only had one goal for that day: tell Eleanor the truth. Are you sure you want to do it this way? Chloe asked on the phone as Alex got dressed. It might be a very strong shock to see you in person. It has to be face to face, he replied. I owe her that. Alex chose simple clothes: jeans, a blue shirt, a casual jacket. Nothing that would remind her of the millionaire businessman who appeared in business magazines. He left the wheelchair at home and asked his driver to drop him off a few blocks from Eleanor's school. He walked slowly, feeling every step as if it were his first after a long illness. The reality of what he was about to do hit him hard. It wasn't just confessing a lie. It was destroying the image Eleanor had of him. The school was almost empty when he arrived. Classes had ended an hour ago, but Eleanor usually stayed to prepare materials or grade papers. Alex stopped in front of the main entrance, took a deep breath, and walked in. He found her in her classroom, organizing books on a shelf. Her hair was in a messy ponytail, and she was humming a song. When she turned and saw him standing in the doorway, the book she was holding fell to the floor with a dull thud. Alex! Her voice was barely a whisper. Her eyes went from his face to his legs repeatedly, as if she couldn't process what she was seeing. Eleanor, you can walk. The question came out like a blunt force. Alex nodded, not daring to approach. I need to explain. Explain what? The initial shock gave way to something darker in her gaze. That you've been lying to me this whole time? It wasn't how you think. Oh no. Eleanor picked up the fallen book, her hands trembling slightly. Then tell me how it was. Because from where I'm standing, it seems pretty clear. Alex closed the classroom door and took a few steps closer. It all started as a stupid social experiment. A social experiment? The disbelief in her voice was palpable. You played with my feelings for an experiment? At first, yes, but then... Alex ran a hand through his hair. Then I truly got to know you. I saw how you were with your students, how you talked about your mother, your passion for books, and everything changed. Eleanor looked at him as if he were a stranger. In a way, he was. Is there anything else I should know? She asked in a controlled voice. Any other lies? Alex took a deep breath. It was time for the whole truth. My full name is Alexander Thorne Vega. I own Thorne Industries, one of the largest real estate companies in the country. Eleanor brought a hand to her mouth. Now she understood why that last name had sounded familiar. Oh my God, you're... Her voice broke. Why would someone like you do something like that? Because I'm tired of people only seeing my money, Alex replied with sincerity. I wanted to know if someone could be interested in me, not in what I can offer materially. And you decided the best way was to fake a disability? Indignation made her voice tremble. Do you have any idea how offensive that is? To people who truly live that reality? Every word was like a dagger, but Alex knew he deserved it. I know. It was inexcusable. How many times have you done this before? Eleanor asked. 4 times, Alex admitted. But I never got this far. I usually revealed the truth on the second date. And why didn't you do it with me? Because with you, it was different from the beginning. The sincerity in his voice was undeniable. You didn't treat me with pity or discomfort. You just saw me as a normal person. And when I got to know you better, I didn't want to lose that. Eleanor shook her head, a bitter smile on her lips. You don't understand, do you? I don't care if you can walk or not, or if you have money or live on the street. I cared about the person I thought I knew. Her voice broke. But that person doesn't exist. You invented him. Alex took a step towards her, but Eleanor raised a hand to stop him. You didn't give me the chance to choose who you really are, she said with a calmness that hurt more than any scream. You stole that option from me. The silence that followed was deafening. Outside, the distant laughter of some students could be heard, life continuing oblivious to what was happening in that classroom. I'm sorry, Alex finally said. I know it's not enough, but I truly am sorry. Eleanor nodded slightly, not as acceptance but as acknowledgement of his words. I need time, she said. Please, leave. Can I call you? Later. I don't know, Alex. The way she pronounced his name, as if it were a new word she was learning, broke his heart. Honestly, I don't know. Alex left the school with a feeling of emptiness he had never experienced. It wasn't just the rejection that hurt. It was knowing that he himself had destroyed something valuable before it could fully blossom. As he walked through the streets, several people recognized him. One man even asked for his autograph, excited to meet the businessman of the year. Alex signed automatically, feeling more alone, surrounded by admiration than ever before. For the first time, all his wealth, his success, his social standing meant nothing. For the first time, Alex Thorne didn't know what to do with the pain he himself had caused. And how do you feel after telling her everything? The therapist's voice was calm, professional. Alex looked out the office window before answering. He had been attending therapy for 2 weeks, something he never thought he would do. Empty. As if I had lost something I didn't even know I wanted so badly. Dr. Garcia adjusted her glasses and wrote something in her notebook. Tell me more about that fear you mentioned earlier. The fear of being loved only for your money. Alex sighed, leaning back in the armchair. He wasn't used to talking about his feelings, but something had broken inside him since that day at Eleanor's school. My ex-fiancée, Danielle. We were together for 3 years. When I had the motorcycle accident and they thought I might not walk again, she disappeared. She didn't even break up with me personally. She just stopped coming to the hospital. And when you recovered? She showed up as if nothing had happened, saying she needed time. But I had already seen the truth. Alex paused. After that, I became distrustful. And that's why the experiments with the wheelchair, Dr. Garcia stated, not asked. It sounds pretty sick when you put it that way, Alex admitted with a bitter laugh. I'm not here to judge you, but to help you understand your actions. The doctor looked at him directly. Have you tried to contact her? I sent her messages during the first week. She didn't answer. Across town, Eleanor tried to concentrate on grading her students' exams. The words blurred before her eyes. She had been trying to maintain her routine for 2 weeks, but Alex's revelation had disrupted her life more than she wanted to admit. The sound of a cup on the table pulled her from her thoughts. Her mother, Rose, offered her a tea. Still thinking about him, aren't you? The older woman asked, sitting down with difficulty due to her arthritis. I can't help it, Mom. I feel betrayed. Why? Rose's direct question was typical of her. Because he lied to you, or because he turns out to be rich? Because of the lie, of course. Eleanor put down her pen. How can I trust someone who faked something so serious? People make mistakes, honey, especially when they're scared. Her mother replied simply. I'm not saying it was right, but fear makes us do stupid things. Are you defending him? No. Just reminding you that everyone deserves a second chance. Even your father had one, and look how much worse his was. Eleanor remembered how her father had abandoned the family for another woman, only to return remorseful years later. Her mother had eventually forgiven him. "It's different," she murmured. "Perhaps," Rose conceded. "But the question is, do you miss him?" Eleanor didn't answer, but they both knew the answer. In his office, Alex distractedly reviewed some blueprints when Chloe walked in unannounced, as was her custom. She had become his constant support during these difficult weeks. "You look terrible," she commented, placing a coffee on his desk. "Thanks for the compliment," Alex replied with sarcasm. "How's therapy going?" "Good, I guess. The doctor thinks I have trust issues." "You don't say," Chloe exclaimed with feigned surprise. "The man who fakes being in a wheelchair to test if people truly care about him has trust issues? What a revelation." Alex almost smiled. "Almost. She asked me about Danielle?" he said quietly. Chloe immediately became serious. She knew how painful that episode had been for her brother. "And what did you tell her?" "The truth. That after she left me when they thought I wouldn't walk again, something broke in me." "But Eleanor isn't Danielle," Chloe pointed out. "No, she's much better." Alex looked at the blueprints without really seeing them. "And that's why it hurts even more to have lost her." Eleanor walked through the park where she had strolled with Alex. She remembered pushing his chair, talking about books, how he listened attentively to every word about her students. Was it all a lie? She wondered. The conversations, the laughter, the connection they had felt. Was it all part of the deception? She sat on a bench and closed her eyes. The afternoon was cool, with that light wind that anticipates autumn. She recalled her mother's words. "The question is, do you miss him?" Yes, she missed him. She missed his way of listening with total attention, as if every word were important. She missed his laugh, his intelligent comments about the books they shared. She even missed that air of mystery that she now understood. But she also felt deep disappointment, not for discovering that he could walk or that he was a millionaire, but for the lack of trust, for not having given her the opportunity to truly know him from the beginning. Perhaps she demanded too much perfection. She thought as she watched an elderly couple walk hand in hand. Everyone makes mistakes. However, something inside her wasn't ready to forgive. The pain of the betrayal was recent. The wound was still open. She needed time to process everything, to understand her own confused feelings towards a man she was, in a way, just beginning to know. Meanwhile, in his therapy session, Alex reached a similar conclusion. "I can't force her to forgive me," he said. "I can only show her who I really am and hope that someday she'll want to get to know that man." "And who are you really, Alex?" Dr. Garcia asked. The question left him silent for a moment. For years, he had defined himself by his success, by his money, by appearances. Now, however, none of that seemed important. "I don't know for sure," he replied honestly, "but I want to find out." Upon leaving the consultation, Alex made a decision. He wouldn't try to call Eleanor again, he wouldn't pressure her. But he would find a way to show her that his repentance was sincere and that behind all the lies, there was a man willing to be vulnerable for the first time in his life.
Cơ hội thứ hai và sự khởi đầu của một tình yêu đích thực.
Alex stared at the blank sheet of paper in front of him. He had tried to start that letter at least 20 times in the last few hours, but no words seemed sufficient. How to explain on paper something he didn't even fully understand himself. "If you keep staring at that sheet like that, you're going to burn a hole through it," Chloe commented, placing a cup of coffee on the desk. "I can't find the right words." "Maybe because you're overthinking it," she replied. "Stop writing like a businessman. Write like the Alex I knew when we were kids, before you put on all those suits of armor." That night, after hours of failed attempts, Alex finally began to write without filters, without an emotional calculator, just the naked truth. "Eleanor, I'm not writing to ask for forgiveness. Apologies without change are empty words, and you deserve more than that. I'm writing because I need you to know why I did what I did, even if it doesn't justify the harm caused. 5 years ago, I had a motorcycle accident. The doctors thought I wouldn't walk again. My fiancé at the time, after increasingly spaced out visits, simply disappeared. When I miraculously recovered, she returned as if nothing had happened. That day I understood that for her, my value was in what I could offer her. Status, money, a comfortable life. After that, I became cynical. I started these experiments to confirm my theory that no one could love me for who I am, but for what I have. The first 4 women I tried it with confirmed my suspicions. They were uncomfortable, condescending, or directly lost interest when they believed I was in a wheelchair. And then you appeared. You didn't look at me with pity or discomfort. You didn't ask morbid questions about my supposed condition. You simply treated me like a person, with that naturalness and authenticity that defines you. For the first time, someone saw me, not my chair or my money. I should have told you the truth after that first night, but I was afraid. Afraid that, knowing who I really was, you would change. Afraid of losing that feeling of being valued simply for existing, not for what I could offer. I'm not asking you to forgive me or give me another chance. I just wanted you to know that meeting you changed me. You made me question all my bitter certainties about human relationships. You showed me that authenticity exists, even if I didn't know how to practice it. For the first time in years, I'm in therapy. I'm trying to understand why I hide behind masks and walls. I want to be better, not to win you back, but because you showed me that there's another way to live. Thank you for that, and forgive me for not having been enough. Alex, after rereading the letter several times, put it in a simple envelope. No expensive paper, no perfumed envelopes, no luxury messengers. He would deliver it himself to the school the next day. Eleanor was grading papers in the teacher's lounge when a colleague walked in. "Someone left this for you at the entrance," she said, handing her an envelope. Recognizing Alex's handwriting, Eleanor felt her heart quicken. She waited until she was alone to open it. She read it slowly, once, twice, 3 times. With each reading, she felt different emotions. Anger, sadness, understanding, compassion. She put the letter in her bag and went about her day as if nothing had happened. But the words stayed with her for hours. That night, sitting on the small balcony of her apartment, Eleanor reflected while her mother watched a telenovela in the living room. Could she understand why Alex had acted that way? Yes, the fear of rejection was universal. She herself had ended a relationship years ago for fear of not being enough. Could she forgive the lie? Maybe. Not immediately, but with time. Could she trust him again? That was the hardest question. The letter didn't explicitly ask for forgiveness, nor did it beg for another chance. There was a dignity in those words that resonated with her. They weren't empty promises or emotional manipulations. It was simply a man acknowledging his mistakes and his fears. She picked up her phone and looked at Alex's unanswered messages. The last one was from almost 2 weeks ago. He hadn't pressed after that, respecting her silence. After much thought, she wrote a brief message. "I received your letter. My students will present their final projects on Friday at 4 p.m. If you'd like to come, you're welcome." She pressed send before she could regret it. When her phone rang with his reply, she almost didn't want to look. "Thank you, Eleanor. I'll be there." Simple. No pressure. Eleanor took a deep breath. She didn't know what would happen next, but she felt that at least they deserved a face-to-face conversation, without masks or wheelchairs in between. To her surprise, she realized she was smiling. Alex couldn't believe what he was reading. He had accepted that Eleanor would probably never speak to him again, that the letter might end up in the trash unread, and now he had this invitation. It wasn't a forgiveness, it wasn't a promise, but it was a half-open door. "Don't mess it up this time," Chloe told him when he shared the news. "I won't." The following days passed slowly. Alex continued his therapy sessions, talking for the first time about his absent parents, always busy building an empire, delegating his upbringing to nannies and private schools. Of how he learned from childhood that a person's worth was measured by their material success. "I think I never knew how to just be Alex," he confessed to Dr. Garcia. "I was always the thorn heir, the young entrepreneur, the millionaire bachelor. No one took the time to get to know me beyond those labels. Except her," the therapist pointed out. Except her. Friday arrived with an unusual clarity for an autumn day. Alex chose simple yet elegant clothes. Nothing ostentatious, nothing that screamed money. He drove himself to the school without a chauffeur or luxury car. He wanted everything to be different this time. When he entered the auditorium, several parents and teachers were already seated. Eleanor was organizing students backstage and didn't see him arrive. Alex sat in the last row without drawing attention. The event began with a student's presentation on contemporary poetry. Alex watched Eleanor, who listened proudly from the side of the stage. At one point, their eyes met. She nodded slightly, acknowledging his presence, and returned her attention to the students. After 2 hours of presentations, when everyone applauded the end of the event, Alex wondered if he should approach her or wait for her to come to him. He didn't want to pressure her. The answer came when, among the crowd of parents congratulating their children, Eleanor approached him. "You came," she said, taking the sunflowers. "I wouldn't miss it for anything," he replied, kissing her cheek softly. "You were incredible. It was them. I just guided them a bit," she responded modestly. A comfortable silence settled between them. Alex knew he had to let her set the pace. "I read your letter," Eleanor finally said. "Several times, in fact. I understand if you can't forgive me yet." "It's not just about forgiving, Alex." Her voice was soft but firm. "It's about trusting again, and that's harder." "I know." Another silence. Around them, the auditorium was emptying. "Do you want to get some coffee?" she asked suddenly. "There's a cafe nearby. We can talk." Alex nodded, feeling a mix of relief and nervousness. "I'd love to." The cafe was almost empty at that hour. Eleanor and Alex chose a table in the corner, away from curious glances. The silence between them was like a third guest, occupying space at the table. "Your students are very talented," Alex finally commented after their coffee was served. "It's clear you've inspired them." "Thank you. They've worked hard." Eleanor stirred her coffee without looking directly at him. "I asked them to write about empathy and forgiveness, topics that have been on my mind lately." The hint was not lost on Alex. "Your letter," she continued after a moment, "made me understand some things." "Like what?" "Like we all wear masks in some way." Eleanor looked up. "Yours was more literal than most, but we all hide parts of ourselves out of fear." Alex nodded, surprised by her perspective. "The difference is that most of us don't fake a disability," she added with a certain harshness but without aggression. "I know. It was unforgivable." "I didn't say it was unforgivable," Eleanor corrected. "I said it was different. And after reading your letter, at least I can understand why, even if I don't justify it." Another silence, this time more comfortable, as if both were sorting their thoughts. "How's therapy going?" she asked with genuine interest. "Good. Painful sometimes, but necessary." Alex took a sip of coffee. "I'm learning to recognize patterns I didn't even know I had, like my tendency to control everything to avoid feeling vulnerable." Eleanor smiled slightly. "You know, I never imagined I'd be having coffee with Alex Thorne, the famous entrepreneur," she commented, subtly changing the subject. "My mother almost fainted when I told her who you really were." "You told her everything?" "Yes. She was the one who encouraged me to read your letter, in fact." Eleanor paused. She said everyone deserves a second chance to be honest. The words hung between them, loaded with possibilities. "I don't expect us to go back to where we were," Alex clarified. "I know that's impossible, but I'd like you to get to know me. The real Alex with all his imperfections." "And who is the real Alex?" she asked. "Because I'm not sure anymore." "I didn't know either until recently," he admitted. "I guess he's someone who's learning to be honest. First with himself and then with others. Someone who built an empire to compensate for the emptiness of never feeling enough." The naked sincerity of his response seemed to touch something in Eleanor. "I appreciate your honesty," she said. "It's a good start." When they left the cafe, the sky threatened rain. They walked slowly towards Alex's car, in no hurry to end the moment. "There's something else I want to tell you," Eleanor commented, stopping. "I introduced you to some colleagues today as a friend who has supported our project from the beginning." Thank you for not exposing me, Alex replied, moved by her discretion. I didn't do it for you, she clarified. I did it because my students were excited to have important visitors, and I didn't want to distract them with gossip or complicated explanations. Alex nodded, appreciating her frankness. Anyway, thank you. They reached the car and stopped. There was so much more to say, but they both knew they needed time. Thank you for the letter, Eleanor finally said, for not asking for forgiveness with empty words, but for explaining. That meant a lot. Thank you for reading it, and for this opportunity. They looked at each other for a long moment. There were no certainties, only possibilities. Would you like to come to the final presentation of the semester? She asked. It's in 3 weeks. My students are preparing interpretations of poems about second chances. Alex smiled, catching the irony. I'd love to. This time? She added with a small smile. You choose if you want me to introduce you as my friend Alex or as the entrepreneur Thorn. I prefer just Alex if you don't mind. I like Alex better too, she replied. And for the first time since the revelation, her smile reached her eyes. The entrepreneur Thorn seems too perfect. I prefer someone real with visible scars. They said goodbye with a brief hug, without promises but also without walls. As Eleanor walked away, Alex realized that, for the first time in a long time, he didn't have a plan or a strategy. He didn't know how this story would end, and strangely, that felt good. That night, as Eleanor graded papers in her small living room, her mother approached with 2 cups of tea. How did it go? Rose asked. Good. Different. More honest. And now it's his turn to choose, Eleanor replied, taking her tea. I've already chosen to give him the chance to show me who he really is. You were always the bravest in the family, her mother smiled. Forgiving takes more courage than holding a grudge. I haven't completely forgiven him yet, Eleanor clarified. I'm just giving him space to be sincere. It's a good start, Rose nodded. Good endings always start that way. Meanwhile, Alex looked out at the city from his penthouse. For the first time, the lights and the success were not just a beautiful landscape to share someday with someone special, perhaps with Eleanor, if time and honesty did their work. His phone vibrated with a message. It was her. It was good talking today. No masks. No chairs. Just us. Alex smiled, feeling a hope unlike anything he had felt before. He replied simply, the most honest beginning we've had. Thank you for that. He didn't know what would come next. But for the first time in his life, Alex Thorn was willing not to control the outcome. To simply be himself and see if that was enough.
Cùng nhau viết tiếp câu chuyện.
Eleanor looked out her apartment window, watching the rain fall over the city. Almost 2 weeks had passed since her conversation with Alex at the cafe. Since then, they had exchanged a few brief but meaningful messages. Nothing deep, just small snippets of their days. A book he was reading, an anecdote from her students, photos of sunsets taken from different points in the city. Still staring at the rain like in those novels you read so much? Rose asked, entering the living room with difficulty due to her arthritis. Just thinking, Mom. About him, Eleanor smiled. Her mother knew her too well. He invited me to dinner tomorrow. And what did you say? That I'd think about it. Rose sat next to her, her wrinkled hands seeking her daughter's. What's really stopping you, honey? Weeks have passed. He's apologized. You've talked. What's the real fear? Eleanor was silent for a moment, organizing her thoughts. I'm afraid of not being enough, she finally admitted. He belongs to a completely different world than mine. A world of luxury, important events, powerful people. And I'm just a literature teacher who lives in a small apartment and takes care of her mother. Rose squeezed her hand. Do you know what your father told me before he died? That his greatest regret was wasting years chasing a life he thought he wanted, only to realize too late that true happiness was in the simple things. In us. The rain continued to beat against the glass, marking a steady, comforting rhythm. All this time I've been worried about whether I can forgive him, Eleanor continued. But maybe the problem is whether I can accept who I am in his world. Or whether he can accept who you are in yours? Rose suggested. In his office, Alex distractedly reviewed some contracts when Chloe walked in unannounced, as was her custom. Did she reply yet? She asked, sitting across from him. Not yet. What if she says no? Alex put down the papers and looked at his sister. Then I'll respect her decision. Wow! Chloe raised her eyebrows. Therapy is really working. Don't mock. But he smiled as he said it. I'm not mocking. I'm impressed. Chloe leaned forward. The old Alex would be devising strategies to get what he wants. The new Alex accepts that he can't always control the outcomes. The new Alex is terrified, he admitted. But somehow it feels good to be honest about it. His phone vibrated with a message. It was Eleanor. I accept the invitation for tomorrow. Could it be somewhere simple? I wouldn't feel comfortable in a fancy restaurant. Chloe watched as her brother's expression transformed as he read the message. She said yes? Alex murmured, almost incredulous. And why do you seem surprised? You're handsome, intelligent, and disgustingly rich, Chloe teased. Because she doesn't care about any of that, Alex replied. And that makes her even more special. The next night, Eleanor waited nervously at the entrance of her building. She had chosen a simple but pretty dress, subtle makeup, and her hair down. Nothing ostentatious, nothing that wasn't authentically her. When Alex arrived, he wasn't in the luxurious car she expected. He was driving a compact car, almost modest for someone in his position. He noticed her surprised look. It's the car I use when I want to go unnoticed, he explained as she got in. I thought you'd be more comfortable this way. Thank you for considering that. The restaurant Alex had chosen was a small family trattoria in a quiet neighborhood. There was no maitre d' or sommeliers or silver cutlery, just wooden tables, checkered tablecloths, and the delicious aroma of homemade food. How did you find this place? Eleanor asked, surprised by his choice. I asked my driver where he took his wife for their anniversary. Alex smiled. He said they make the best pasta in the city here, and that the owner treats everyone like family. Dinner flowed with a naturalness that surprised them both. They talked about books, their families, their fears. Alex told her about his therapy sessions, about how he was learning to recognize destructive patterns in his life. My therapist says I've used money and power as substitutes for real emotional connection, he confessed. And I think she's right. We all have our ways of hiding, Eleanor replied. I hide behind impossible expectations. If I demand perfection, no one can get close enough to hurt me. Amidst laughter and confessions, the night progressed. When they left the restaurant, they decided to walk for a while in the nearby park. The full moon illuminated their stroll. There's something I've wanted to ask you, Eleanor finally said. Why me? After your other experiments, what was different this time? Alex stopped, thoughtful. With the other women, when I revealed the truth, I saw exactly what I expected. Surprise, then relief that I wasn't really disabled, then interest in who I really was. He paused. With you, when I told you the truth, I saw genuine disappointment. Not because I could walk, but because I had lied to you. That reaction showed me that you cared about the person, not the condition or the status. They looked at each other under the moonlight, the silence charged with possibilities. I've been reflecting a lot these past few weeks, Eleanor continued. On forgiveness, on second chances, and I believe we all deserve the opportunity to be who we really are without masks. She took a breath. If you want to try again the right way, I want to too. Alex extended his hand. A simple gesture but loaded with meaning. Eleanor took it. It wasn't a passionate embrace or a movie kiss. Just two hands intertwining firmly, without urgency, but with determination. This time, no lies, he said. No impossible expectations, she added. They continued walking through the park, the same one where months ago she had pushed his wheelchair. Now they walked side by side as equals. It wasn't a return to the past, but a true beginning. You know what's the hardest part about starting over? Alex asked. What? Not knowing how the story ends. Eleanor smiled, gently squeezing his hand. Maybe that's the best part. Discovering it together. The night enveloped them as they slowly walked back to the car, in no hurry, enjoying the present moment. There were no guarantees or grand promises. Just two imperfect people, with scars and fears, willing to be vulnerable. It was a new beginning, not a continuation. And for the first time in a long time, both felt truly free. The school auditorium was decorated with paper flowers and colorful posters, made by the students themselves. It was graduation day, the moment Eleanor had been waiting for all year. Her students, those teenagers she had guided through literature and life, were about to take another step towards their future. Eleanor moved backstage, adjusting ties, calming nerves, and reviewing speeches. Her blue dress, simple yet elegant, had been a gift from her mother. "Ms. Vance, do you think many people will come?" asked Danielle, one of her shyer students. "The auditorium is full," Eleanor replied with a smile. "Everyone is here to celebrate you." She didn't mention that part of that fullness was due to the foundation Alex had discreetly created to support the school. In recent months, the library had received new books. The computer lab had modern equipment, and they had been able to organize a dignified graduation without having to ask for contributions from the parents. The ceremony began with the principal's speech. Eleanor watched from the side of the stage, her heart swelling with pride as each student went up to receive their diploma. These kids, many from humble families with big dreams, had worked so hard. Some would go to university thanks to scholarships that had mysteriously increased that year. When the last student was called, the audience erupted in applause. Among the crowd, Eleanor searched for a familiar face. She found him in the last row. Alex, discreetly dressed, holding a bouquet of sunflowers. Their eyes met across the auditorium, and both smiled. 8 months had passed since their new beginning. Months of truly getting to know each other, without rush or pressure. Alex had visited Eleanor's apartment many times, sharing simple dinners with her and Rose. Eleanor had seen his penthouse, initially feeling intimidated, but gradually more comfortable in that space that reflected a part of who he was. It hadn't been easy. There had been difficult moments, uncomfortable conversations, cultural differences that seemed insurmountable. But there had also been laughter, mutual discoveries, a connection that strengthened with honesty. When the ceremony ended and the students celebrated with their families, Eleanor walked towards Alex. "You came," she said, taking the sunflowers. "I wouldn't miss it for anything," he replied, gently kissing her cheek. "You were incredible. It was them. I just guided them a bit." They looked at each other in silence for a moment, the familiar electricity between them. After so long, it still surprised them how easy it was to get lost in each other's gaze. "My mom is waiting for us for dinner," Eleanor commented. "She made your favorite pozole. First, I have something for you." Alex took a small envelope from his jacket. "Open it." Eleanor raised an eyebrow, curious, and opened the envelope. Inside were 2 plane tickets. "Brazil?" she asked, surprised. "I thought we could visit your grandmother's homeland this summer. Get to know your roots, if you'd like, of course." Eleanor smiled, touched by the gesture. It wasn't a ring, or a key to his apartment, or any of those traditional promises. It was something more significant, a shared future, a desire to know her history more deeply. They hugged amidst the hustle and bustle, 2 people who had navigated lies and truths to truly find each other. They didn't know what the future held, but they were together in the present, building something true one day at a time. And for now, that was more than enough. Dear friends, did you enjoy this moving story of Alex and Eleanor? A tale about masks falling, truths that sting, and hearts that learn to forgive. If this journey of rediscovery and second chances touched something within you, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone special, and comment below which part resonated with you the most. We'd love to know which country you're watching us from today, where you're joining us on this love story that reminds us all that everyone deserves the chance to show who they truly are. And if you want more stories about authentic relationships, personal growth, and true love, subscribe to our channel so you don't miss our next publications.